So imagine this cup is you, and every day you do stuff, and you work, and you do stuff, and you work, and you do stuff, and you work, and you do stuff. Now, what's gonna happen to you eventually if you just keep pouring out every single day? Well, you're gonna get empty, and you're not gonna be able to give much of anything on any day. But what if the seventh day wasn't another day to do and to work, but instead it was a day to rest and be filled up? Suddenly, you're gonna have more than enough to pour out joyfully. Welcome back, everybody, to our family series, Jesus Practices, where we've been going over 7 healthy life habits that are going to help us grow stronger in our faith and in following Jesus. This week, we're talking about our 7th practice, the practice of the Sabbath. Now, a Sabbath, or the Sabbath, can mean different things to different people, but for us, this week, we're focusing on a Sabbath as a day of rest once a week. And that brings us to our discussion topic for today. What do you think it means to rest? Or how do you get good rest? Think about it, share, and discuss as a group. I'm sure that a lot of you thought of napping or sleeping when you thought of rest, but maybe for some of you, you thought of taking a break from something to read a book or to get comfortable, watch a movie, whatever it was. You probably thought of yourself doing something where you stopped doing certain things, instead focused on restful things in order to be rested. And once again, just like the other practices we've been going over, Jesus is our example for the practice of the Sabbath. You see, Jesus was a Jewish man. He would have grown up his whole life seeing this practice lived out, where from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday, that 24-hour period, his family would have observed a Sabbath, a holy rest, a day separated to worship God, to stop doing work, that sort of thing. Jesus also taught about the Sabbath in his teachings, and he even said that he was the Lord of the Sabbath, or the ruler over the Sabbath day. God actually has set up this pattern of working 6 days and then resting on a 7th day. He set it up in the very beginning, in the fabric of creation. If we look in the book of Genesis in chapter 1 and 2, we see this lived out by God as he created the universe for 6 days. But on that 7th day, he stopped from his work, he looked at his creation, and he said it was good, and he rested, and he blessed the 7th day, the Sabbath day. Eventually, this practice, or observing the special day of rest, became a part of the 10 commandments that God gave to Moses and to the Israelites. This is what it says in Exodus chapter 20. Remember to observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. You have 6 days a week for your ordinary work, but on the 7th day, it's a Sabbath day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. But on the 7th day, he rested. That is why the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and set it apart as holy. So we work 6 days and we rest on the 7th day. It's this picture to us modeled by God, where he says he's going to bless that 7th day so that we can rest. Since we're talking about Sabbath and rest, that gives me a great idea for a game. Game time! Okay, I'm calling this one Rest on 7, and this is what it's going to look like. You're actually not going to get to rest. We're both going to do jumping jacks, as many as we can for 1 whole minute. So we'll put up a timer for 1 minute and see who can get the most jumping jacks done. But this will be the difference. After I do each 6 jumping jacks, I'm going to take a short rest before I keep going on. Your job is to keep going as many as you can, as fast as you can, without taking any rest. No rest for you. I'll get to rest after every 6, and we'll see who can do more. All right, get ready. Get into a place where you're comfortable, you have room to move around and do jumping jacks, and if you're next to somebody, not to whack them in the face. Okay? Let's do this. All right, remember, I get to rest, you don't. Let's see who can do the most in 1 minute. On your mark, get set, go.
Here we go now.
I feel like I did a pretty good job, but maybe you beat me. But do you think you could have beaten me without taking any rest if we did jumping jacks for 2 whole minutes? Or what about 24 hours? Or what about 168 hours, the hours in a week? Do you think you could keep going and going without ever resting? I have a feeling that the person who rests every once in a while is going to be able to do more in the long run anyways. So the word Sabbath actually means something close to stopping or ceasing. So what are we supposed to be stopping from? Well, if you're ready to hear about that, let's do some Sabbath Pro tips to help you out with this practice. The first tip is something to stop from and something to focus on. So we're going to stop from wanting. On our Sabbath, we're going to stop from thinking about the things that we want, the things we don't have, the things that could be, and instead we're going to focus on what God has given us. Every good thing we have has come from God, and the Sabbath is a day or a time to remember and be thankful for all that we have. On our Sabbath, we're also going to stop worrying. Worrying takes a lot of work, and it's not fruitful at all anyways. But on the Sabbath, we are going to make sure that we stop wasting time by worrying, and instead we're going to shift our focus. Instead of it being on the challenges, the trials, the things we're worried or scared about, we're going to focus on trusting God. We're going to focus on remembering God's greatness in our life, knowing that He's with us, He's for us, He's always going to keep His promises, and that truly we have nothing to worry about. And on the Sabbath, we're also going to stop working. Remember what it said in Exodus 20? Nobody should be working. And that's because we're going to, instead of working like we would the other 6 days of the week, we're going to focus on resting and trusting that God will provide for us, and that God is good, and that God is loving, and that He will cover us with His grace. That means His care towards us, His goodness towards us. And finally, as you're resting on your Sabbath time, maybe include some of those other practices that we've talked about. Things like prayer, reading your Bible, having community. Those are all great ways to focus on God, to stop from the regular work week and the regular stuff we do, and just make it a time all about God. And that brings us to our practice for the Sabbath. So your job and your family's job this week is going to be to pick out a chunk of time that you want to test this idea of the Sabbath out in. So for some of you guys, if you're not ready to jump into a full 24 hours, that's okay. Maybe experiment with a 5 to 8 hour chunk of time where you're going to rest. You're going to stop from the wanting and the worrying and the working, and instead you're going to focus on all the good stuff of God. And this is your opportunity to maybe discuss some of the things that you will do that aren't work and the things that you definitely won't do. Maybe it's homework or chores or whatever. So you make that decision as a family and then give it a shot. Whether you think so or not, I believe that taking this day once every 7 days will become a huge blessing to you and will help you continue to pour out of your lives and share the love of Jesus with those around you. Okay, everybody, that's it for this week. I love you all. I hope you're doing well. Stay connected with us, and I'll see you next time.